I first want to say thank you for taking the time to attend the press conference. My name is Yvonne Williams, and I'm the Executive Director of Trafficking in America Task Force. And our vision is to educate and make people aware of human trafficking across the country, and especially in Tennessee, since we're from Tennessee. The reason that we're here today is to talk about Tennessee's response to the growing epidemic of human trafficking in America and what part our state has to play in addressing this issue. You'll hear from our speakers about statistics in our state, the magnitude of our own problems with the human trafficking, and what various agencies are doing by working together to combat it. You'll see that the TBI is the first to complete a comprehensive report in the country to know exactly what our state is confronted with, a survey model that we urge all states to follow. Additionally, Tennessee is, according to our research, the first state in the United States to proclaim a Human Trafficking Awareness Week by our governor. We applaud him for that. We submitted the proclamation to NGOs in 13 additional states that are wanting to follow suit with Tennessee, so we're very proud of that. You may or may not be aware that human trafficking is the fastest growing crime in the world, and some state that it will be the #1 in America by 2012, and we're fast approaching that. The most recent statistics state that there are 100,000 to 300,000 new victims of human sex trafficking in America alone every year. America's trafficking within America, not those trafficked into America from the outside, which is about 17,500 each year. These statistics are also several years old, so we know the problem is much higher than I've just stated. So once again, I want to thank you for coming. This is the beginning of a collective conversation, I think, with all of our officials about addressing this issue, and the beginning of creating some definitive solutions to ending it within our state. So I want to thank you for that. Next, I'd like to introduce Representative Mike Sparks. He's co-sponsoring this event with us. Representative Sparks has been very, very interested in human trafficking since I met him in May, and he's gone to meeting after meeting and educated himself on human trafficking and has gotten a passion for this issue as well. So we're pleased to have him co-sponsor this with us. And if you'll come up and introduce the speakers.
Thank you, Yvonne. As a freshman legislator, you hear a lot of issues that's out there, and Chairman Maggart could attest to that. And as of all the issues of importance, this is probably the one that probably hits closest to my heart than any of them. The drug abuse that we see in our community is to me getting to be an epidemic of proportion. But when Kathy Hines came to my office, she was telling me about this problem, and I said, well, this isn't as bad as you say it is. I just couldn't fathom these problems in our community, especially in my county, Rutherford County, And I said, well, if it is a problem, it's Hispanic population or something like that. It's not something that's really hitting mainstream. Started looking into it, and it is a problem. But Kathy, I love her passion, and that's what it's going to take to make a difference in our society is passion. And I want to commend those that's in the audience here and all those that's here at this forum for your passion for being here. If I can also want to thank Governor Bill Haslam for his proclamation. And I'll introduce our panel here. Commissioner Bill Gibbons, Director of Safety and Homeland Security. Bill, if you can raise your hand. Mark Gwynn, TBI Director. Chairman Deborah Maggart, Tennessee House Representatives. Darius Smith, Founder and Director of End Slavery Tennessee. Christy Weigel, okay, I'm sorry. Director of Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And I'm just glad for y'all to be here and look forward to hearing your comments. Thank you.
Well, I'm Bill Gibbons, Commissioner of Safety and Homeland Security. Representative Sparks, thank you very much for your leadership on this issue. Several speakers have already alluded to the fact that Governor Haslam issued a proclamation earlier this year, and that proclamation was basically designed to increase awareness among Tennesseans of this problem and to urge them to join in doing something about it. Following me, you're going to hear from Director Mark Gwynn of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. And he, I'm sure, is going to talk about some specifics in the TBI report on the problem of human sex trafficking. It points a very disturbing picture of the scope of this problem in our state. And again, I assume he will go into the details of it. But I think Director Gwynn would be the first to agree that if anything, the report understates or underreports this crime, because so much of it goes either unrecognized or is simply hidden from public view. So while the picture is disturbing in the report, I think all of us would agree that the problem is even greater than what the report indicates. The most important thing we can do is to increase public awareness of this problem and to urge people to act if they suspect human sex trafficking. It's especially disturbing to me that when you look at the age of victims of this crime, the average age is about 13 years of age. Homeless and runaways in particular are targets of human traffickers. One thing that the Department of Safety and Homeland Security, of course, is responsible for is our state troopers across the state. And you see them on our interstates every day. And we're really pushing them to be out there more often. And we are in the process of making sure that every single one of our state troopers gets 40 hours of training on interdiction. Now, when you think about interdiction on our interstates, that usually involves drugs and drug proceeds. But it also involves interdiction of human trafficking. And part of that training that all of our road troopers will be receiving is the problem of human sex trafficking in our state. We're training our troopers to look for signs and to ask those additional questions that often need to be asked. Because when you think about it, those state troopers in a lot of ways are on the front line in trying to combat this particular crime. Last but not least, I want to commend the General Assembly for taking some very important action on this. Representative Sparks, we appreciate your leadership. Representative Maggart, you have been in the forefront of this, and I want to publicly thank you for the leadership that you have provided. I know in particular you were in the lead on a bill that was passed this year, which I'm sure you'll get into in more detail, which basically provides minors who are charged with prostitution or taken into custody for prostitution immunity from prosecution, but at the same time increases the penalties for those who patronize minors who are engaging in prostitution. And I'm sure Representative Maggart will get into more detail on that. Another piece of legislation that was passed this year established the Human Trafficking Hotline. Another very important piece of legislation makes it easier to gain access to the property of those who are engaging in sex trafficking and using the proceeds to purchase various things. It makes it easier for that property to be forfeited. Another very important bill that was passed this year involves electronic solicitation, electronically soliciting exploitation of minors. It makes it easier to prosecute those individuals in Tennessee, even though the person soliciting may have been in another state, and even though the person who was being solicited may be a law enforcement officer posing as a minor as opposed to a minor. So those are just examples of things that the General Assembly has done just in the last year to help address this problem. And again, Representative Maggart, I thank you in particular for the leadership that you have provided. Let me just close by emphasizing once again that the most important thing every citizen in Tennessee can do to address this problem is to act if that individual thinks that there's a chance of human sex trafficking going on, to be aware of it and to act on any suspicious activity. With that, what I'd like to do is call upon our director of the TBI, Bart Gwynn, for some comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Gibbons. Well over a year ago, I began to see what I thought was a proliferation of human sex trafficking cases throughout the state of Tennessee. And I want to commend Representative Sparks and Representative Maggard for allowing us to commission a study to see if indeed the state did have a problem, a growing problem of human sex trafficking. Proud to say that TBI commissioned that study, completed a very thorough and comprehensive study. And when this study was delivered to my desk and I began to review it, I was mortified. Mortified that 85% of our counties in this state showed some type of human sex trafficking in the last 24 months. I was mortified that 76% of the counties in this state said that some type of human sex trafficking case dealt with a minor. Mortified that 8 counties alone represented over 100 sex trafficking cases. So once we had the study, what were we to do with it? Now we know, not think, that we have a problem of human sex trafficking in the state. Where do we go from here? The first thing that I want to do as director of TBI is to make sure that every law enforcement officer in this state is trained to recognize human sex trafficking. As Commissioner Gibbons said, we must understand that these numbers are low. They're low because law enforcement is not adequately trained to recognize human sex trafficking. So we must now make sure that every law enforcement officer in this state gets the proper training. TBI has already conducted some training across the state. We started out in Chattanooga with our first training session, and we're going to go all across the state to see that now we can recognize and try to arrest and prosecute the individuals behind these sex trafficking organizations. But let's not forget the victims. I think just as important to train law enforcement in how to recognize the people that are behind the sex trafficking organizations, it's important to train law enforcement to get the adequate help and the resources to the victims, to make sure that we engage the whole community in this problem, from the court system to social services to nonprofit. If we're going to actually get our arms around human sex trafficking, it's just not a law enforcement issue. It's a community issue. So I think let's not, while we're going through all of this, forget what's truly important about this issue, and that is the victims. And there are a lot of them out there. Let's make sure they get the adequate resources, help, and support that they need. I close by saying also the hotline is very important. It's the lifeline to not only the victims, for them to get their help and support that they need, but to the public. So many of the people in our communities don't understand what human sex trafficking is, would not know it if it was right in front of them. This hotline will provide them a highway of intelligence that they can call in and understand exactly what human sex trafficking is, who to report it to, and how to get the victims the support they so badly needed. With that being said, I'll close. Once again, I want to thank Governor Haslam for the proclamation so that it brings better awareness to the issue, and Representative Sparks and Maggard for their help in strengthening the laws that will give us what we need to go after these individuals. With that being said, I now would like to recognize Representative Maggard.
Thank you, Director. Thank you all for being here today. I'm very proud to be part of this panel and that we're talking about something so very important. And too often, as we all know, this subject does go unnoticed. Many of us assume that human trafficking takes place only in the dark corners of the globe, far away from the civilized avenues of America. And if only that was true. That said, a few years ago, several of us in the General Assembly decided it was time to stand up and fight back against human trafficking. I'm proud to report that we have made strides in doing this in our state when it comes to fighting this incredible wrong. In this last year alone in Tennessee, we joined with many other states in creating the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. This is a national toll-free number available to answer calls from anywhere in the country, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. This means that whenever there is a victim of trafficking, that individual now has an outlet to reach out. We gave law enforcement the authority and the ability to seize any property and assets used in human trafficking, and that property is then forfeited by the guilty party. We have also strengthened the penalties for those who would participate in human trafficking. Many of us in here understand that that means going after those who would profit from unsolicited and forced unwanted sexual behavior. Promoting and patronizing prostitution now has enhanced penalties associated with that, and we also know how human trafficking plays a major part in prostitution. And what we did make that a Class E felony to promote or patronize a minor in prostitution. And also, as Commissioner Gibbons mentioned, we have made it possible for children to be immune from the prosecution of these offenses. Moreover, those who have been convicted of this sort of activity, especially against minors, I think need to have to register on the number of databases that our law enforcement can use to track their movements, and I'm looking into adding these people who do these things to the sex offender registry when we return to the General Assembly. However, even with all of these much-needed advancements in the Tennessee Code, we still have far to go. The TBI report illustrates just how far that is, and I believe it is an understatement to say that human trafficking and sex slavery in our state has been grossly underestimated. In the business world, we often trumpet the fact that Tennessee is centrally located and has a superb interstate system, making commerce and shipping easy. Sadly, those positive things about our state for economic development have also led Tennessee to become a hotbed for trafficking. 85% of our counties in Tennessee have reported an instance of trafficking, many of those with minors at the center of the cases. And that number, as we all know, is trending higher. We also all know that this is unacceptable. So what can be done? First of all, I believe we can do more to integrate our existing laws with the federal laws in this area. In fact, we should get to a point where the sentences are maximized for these crimes. And, we need to look at making it more than a Class C felony. We need to add civil remedies to the law, and I think we should look into creating a statewide task force to conduct these investigations. I think we need to take steps to modernize our law enforcement training across the state to ensure our law enforcement personnel are better prepared and equipped to handle these cases. Additionally, we must all do what we can to increase awareness. Obviously, events like the one we are participating in today further that cause. But I believe our law enforcement leaders need to be out in the community on a regular basis and engaging our neighbors about the subject. Beyond this, I do think we need a much more substantial focus on the victims, as the director pointed out, and helping them through what must be a very trying time. I think we need to engage private entities and explore potential partnerships to create new avenues for counseling and rehabilitation. In conclusion, there is no way around it. This is a horrible crime that must be stopped cold. I can assure you all that there are some very committed individuals within the General Assembly who want to see this battle through. Many of us, like Representative Sparks, and I want to also mention Representative Jim Coley and Representative Sherry Jones. Please let her know that I mentioned her. She has been someone, along with Jim Coley and others, who have worked very hard about this issue, and that I know that when we get back, we're going to continue to work with the TBI, with the Commissioner of Safety, with all of our law enforcement folks across the state to see what else we can do to get rid of this problem in our state. Thank you all for your time today and being conscious of this problem in our state. Thank you.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be part of this team. The roles non-governmental organizations play in the fight against human trafficking are as broad as the many segments of society impacted by this crime, and as complex as the myriad of challenges faced by rescued victims. Everyone either is or knows someone who is vulnerable to human traffickers. Some populations are particularly vulnerable. 80% of victims are female, At least half are minors. So a teenage girl living in an unsafe or an abusive environment, or who is overly trusting, or who's looking for the affirmation and fulfillment that she's not finding at home, these are prime targets for a trafficker looking for their next victim. But traffickers don't simply prey on obviously vulnerable minors. Both girls and boys living in good homes, in the suburbs, in peaceful rural settings, are also lured or forced into sex or labor trafficking. So if you think that someone you know, that this couldn't happen to someone you know or to someone you love, think again. So there's a great need for nonprofits to warn families and teens of the tactics of human traffickers. This is why End Slavery Tennessee has just completed a high-quality video training for youth settings that warns of the textbook traps set by traffickers and used by these predators over and over again throughout the country. I think we'd all agree that it's much better to spare a person the trauma of human trafficking than it is to deal with a life shattered by weeks, months, or years of slavery. People who encounter victims in the course of their work or in their communities sometimes sense that something is wrong, but they need help correctly interpreting the suspicious signs they see so they recognize that what they're actually seeing is someone trapped in slavery. That's why End Slavery Tennessee spoke in 16 venues in our state in just the month of November, so that social workers, teachers, medical professionals, law enforcement officers, and community members can help identify victims. Human trafficking is a crime hidden in plain sight, and we and other NGOs throughout the state are working to open eyes. One simple way we do that is with a case map of past cases on our website, endslaverytn.org. The actual rescue is something we largely leave to law enforcement professionals who do a fabulous job and yet need a lot of help to rescue the hundreds in Tennessee who at any given time are wondering when somebody will come finally and rescue them. But then there's the plight of the victim after rescue. So we need here in Tennessee a coordinated umbrella of services to put each life back together again. It begins with the initial needs after rescue, like shelter, food, treatment for addictions and pregnancies, protection from perpetrators when testimony is pending, protection of family members who are under threat from traffickers who may speak up. There are medical needs, as you can imagine. These victims are often physically tortured into submission. Some come away with STDs. Some need ongoing legal help in a culture sometimes slow to recognize the difference between being a prostitute and being prostituted through force, fraud, or coercion, or to recognize that there is no such thing as a child prostitute. Also, immigration issues can complicate the legal status of a foreign victim. End Slavery Tennessee and other NGOs respond to calls from law enforcement to meet some of the immediate needs of rescued victims that government agencies lack the funds or the mandate to provide. Our funds for that are limited, but we do the best we can. Then comes the long, hard road to recovery from the emotional trauma. Counselors, caseworkers, places, and programs where victims can find their way back to a productive life. All are needed. While NGOs and government agencies do exist that deal with many of these issues in the general population, few are prepared to work with the unique and complex issues of a human trafficking victim. So we need NGOs that understand survivors of human trafficking and their needs, and we need a single point of contact where a victim can come to have their needs assessed and then be referred to the various service providers that can meet those needs. Some people in the state are speaking privately right now about creating just that single point of contact. End Slavery Tennessee is not the only NGO working tirelessly to solve the many aspects of this problem. Among others are Operation Broken Silence in Memphis, who is taking the lead in advocacy and research. Trafficking in America is excellent at media awareness, like this event, and they bring an annual national training conference to our area. The Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking, led by Christy in Knoxville, brings specialized training to our state and facilitates communication and collaboration among NGOs. Sorry, I just found my parking information in the middle of my talk, which is not going to be very helpful. How embarrassing. Okay, we've come a long way in just a few years. When I spoke to community groups 3 years ago about human trafficking, most people were stunned. Now public awareness is growing. We've had movies like Taken, Call and Response, Sex and Money, and others. College students are taking up the cause and going into careers that will help make a difference. Our government agencies are stepping up to the plate, and the media is listening and reporting like never before. I recall an hour-long television interview I did 3 years ago. By the end of the show, I still wasn't sure I had convinced the interviewer that human trafficking was really here and that it was growing. With all of our efforts, thankfully, we're getting past those days. But NGOs have a huge role to play, as in addition to prevention and awareness, we develop the services that can aid recovery for real-life people, mostly women and children, who need to put their lives back together again. Thank you.
Well, we're certainly thankful to the media, our law enforcement, government partners, definitely all of our panel speakers, and for the Trafficking in America Task Force for hosting this event. You know, leadership is a powerful tool when you combine collaborative efforts to bring great momentum and to accomplish a lot of great things. And we want to join everyone else in showing our appreciation to Governor Haslam for declaring Tennessee Human Trafficking Awareness Week, in addition to signing the bills that we've already discussed today into our anti-human trafficking efforts. And you know, when you break everything down at looking at combating human trafficking, guys, it can be very overwhelming. And so what we do is we try to, as an organization all across Tennessee, individual organizations, we try to focus on our individual talents and giftings and passions and bring all that together in partnering with our law enforcement, partnering with our government, partnering with local organizations to be able to help increase the momentum that we're experiencing here in Tennessee. But for us, creating that momentum in Tennessee wouldn't take place without the existing leaders that are already in place, and some of those being Governor Haslam, Margie Quinn, our TBI ASAC, that we have so much respect for, DCS Commissioner O'Day, our FBI victim specialist in East, Middle, and West Tennessee, working with Cindy Perry with the Select Committee of Children and Youth and her introduction for us working with the Tennessee Commission for Children and Youth, and also for our law enforcement and government partners. For us, our coalition, the Community Coalition of Human Trafficking in Knoxville, we are work very closely with our KPD, and we're honored to have Chief Roush here today, which is a testament to the collaborative efforts that we've been able to do and to work with law enforcement in our area. Some of the other leadership that we've looked to as NGOs all across the country, Sergeant Byron Fassett working with the Florida Coalition Against Human Trafficking, Mark Horner with Ethical Living. You know, as we come in and approach this huge task of helping to combat human trafficking, which is the #2 crime in the world, you know, we've needed the leadership to rely to increase our knowledge and understanding as we're moving forward. And for the last 2 years, there's been 9 NGOs, non-government organizations, that across the state that have worked together as a team in a variety of statewide efforts. And this year we've had the pleasure of adding 2 more NGOs to that group, one of those being Redemption Rescue Ministries, as well as the Trafficking in America Task Force. And honestly, each one of us are passionate about making it harder to traffic in Tennessee. There are several reasons why we've been able to increase the momentum in Tennessee to combat human trafficking. And I think Andrew Carnegie said it best. Teamwork is the ability to work together toward a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishments towards organizational objectives. It is the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. And truly, we have seen that momentum all across the state in combating what has once been a hidden crime. And we have, through the awareness, through the prevention, through the training, we are now shedding light into the darkness of human trafficking. There are several reasons why. One of the things I want to talk about is just the collaborative efforts of NGOs working together and how we've been able to accomplish so much on the ground while our law enforcement and government are doing everything that they're doing. One of the things is we all share a mutual passion to combat human trafficking. Every one of us has a reason why we're in this industry. Not just to raise awareness, but to get to the victims. And I think that's a common theme today, is to get to the victims, to be able to rescue, provide a very long restoration process for those victims of sex and labor trafficking. A lot of emphasis is given to sex trafficking, but we do have labor trafficking here in Tennessee. And we all share a desire to see mutual progress all across the state. One of the things that we've done is we've each individually focused on our gifts, our talents, our passions. We have a passion to combat human trafficking, but you may have one, like as Derry mentioned, Ryan Dalton with Operation Broken Silence has a passion for the legal efforts. And so he has led efforts for all of us across the state to work with our senators and representatives to get additional bills passed, as everyone else has been able to focus on a different aspect of what we bring to the table. Communication has absolutely been key for us to be able to increase the momentum. One of the things I'm passionate about is leadership and raising up new leaders. And so everything that we've done that's affected the state, we've had good communication so that one person can step up into the leadership, and then we all help bring support and momentum for that effort. One of the things that we've also did is we all have a common faith and prayer, and it's not something that's mentioned a lot in collaborative efforts with NGOs, but it's certainly something that we've shared within the 9 NGOs, and it's certainly helped all of our efforts in combating trafficking. We've taken all of this and created a team that is truly passionate about making it harder to traffic in Tennessee. And so how does this work? How does our teamwork actually work for us? Each project is designated to combat human trafficking in some element. For us, it may be awareness, training, collaboration, prosecutions, or direct victim services. It's important to note that we all work in our communities independently of the rest of the Tennessee team. But when we work on any project that affects the state, we join forces and collaborate. One of our Tennessee team will have a vision to target a particular area of combating human trafficking. They create a plan of action and discuss that with the Tennessee team, and we communicate our thoughts and expand that plan of action to develop the project. We always have a leader that will take precedence on leading individual projects, but as a team, it's been great to see different projects come forth and to see now 11 NGOs sign their name to help promote that initiative. In working this way, we've accomplished so much more by leading and allowing others to lead. Time and funding is limited for all of us, that we accomplish so much more through teamwork and collaboration. We always say that it takes the power of one to accomplish great things. It takes just one person to lead a cause and draw others to build that momentum with that cause. A great example of that statewide teamwork with this year was the passing of the bill for the hotline. It took all of us working together to get this bill through. Margie Quinn led the effort on all of this, and Ryan Dalton with Operation Broken Silence helped with the bill content. Cindy Perry with the Select Committee for Children and Youth helped negotiate to get it passed. Even in the last few hours before sending the bill onward, I was on the phone negotiating for several hours on behalf of our entire Tennessee team to agree on the terms that would satisfy both our NGO efforts and those of the lobbyist. Our Tennessee team threw our support behind Margie and Cindy to help get this bill passed and committed ourselves to help raise awareness about the program with law enforcement, social service organizations, and within our communities. So today, as we come together to discuss Tennessee's momentum on combating human trafficking, I'd like to share some of the statewide projects that are underway, we're either engaged in or will be pursuing in the 2012. It's important to note our appreciation to Pilot Travel Center's Flying J on November 7th for partnering with Truckers Against Trafficking and posting anti-trafficking content at more than its 550 travel centers across the country. That is significant. With them being based here in Tennessee, actually in Knoxville, we share an even greater appreciation for those efforts. Also, one other thing, the successful prosecution of Juan Mendez. For those that aren't aware, U.S. Attorney Ed Stanton led the way in Memphis for the biggest prosecution ever and got 50 years for the Juan Mendez sex trafficking case. And so as we look at collaborative efforts all across the state, literally, it takes one leader to help bring those efforts to make Tennessee a leader in this fight. There are 5 main aspects for our Tennessee team, as we discussed, to combat human trafficking: awareness, training, direct victim services, collaboration, and prosecution. Most of the NGOs across the state will provide direct victim services, whether for sex or labor trafficking victims, and all of us work with law enforcement and our government. Awareness is the best form of prevention and detection. We all across the state, have speaking engagements throughout our local communities and throughout the state. We have a lot of focus on minor sex trafficking in particular and developing prevention and detection programs for our youth. One of our greatest appreciations in collaborating with the Blue Campaign through Homeland Security is with their collateral outreach. Secretary Napolitano introduced last year and made collateral available to NGOs across the country. I know that our coalition personally goes through so much of this that could not even imagine having to print all of this ourselves. Our coalition primarily focuses on Knoxville, Tennessee, but we serve as an umbrella for 41 different counties throughout East Tennessee, and so we have to provide a lot of collateral to different organizations, and we're appreciative for the Blue Campaign for making that collateral available. As Derry mentioned, In Slavery Tennessee created the Be the Jam program, which is a youth-focused program. It includes a series of videos of the most common tactics used by traffickers to lure our youth. In 2012, they're developing a network of churches around the country to get involved with this program. And they just created a 23-minute awareness presentation for youth audiences. One of the things that they're doing, as well as our coalition is doing in Knoxville, is creating community action packs, both for our community and for our police, that not only is going to help empower the community to raise awareness to protect our youth, but for our police will provide that added training to each one of those. Trafficking in America Task Force, which is one of our new NGOs, created the I Promise to Do Our Part campaign, and this focuses on youth becoming aware of human trafficking and encouraging them to create awareness within their schools. There are cases all over the country that you'll hear about of pimps going into schools and befriending youth to become their boyfriends, and instantly you'll find average American girls, not in the projects, straight-A students that are becoming victims of human trafficking. So there's a great need for us to educate our youth in our schools and also in our community. One of the other things that the Trafficking in American Task Force is doing is creating youth ambassadors in each state to inspire that youth awareness. Operation Broken Silence in Memphis, Tennessee has developed the CARE Network that is a community-based, multi-organization response to human trafficking, and they're aggressively pursuing a safe house for minor sex trafficking survivors. At this time, we have one dedicated safe house in Knoxville, Tennessee that is exclusively for human trafficking survivors. Our coalition, the Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking, has led efforts on a project called Tennessee Save Our Kids. With this project, we've created a partnership with DCS. We're looking to create that partnership with DCS to either outsource the care of rescued minor sex trafficking victims to one of our approved safe houses, or create educational classes for foster parents that care for rescued minor trafficking victims. Having worked a trafficking case through DCS, I can tell you there's a lot of interest and desire to learn, but there's a lot of places that all of us see that we can improve on in educating foster parents and educating caseworkers. One of the other aspects of Tennessee Save Our Kids is to primarily utilize current DCS funding to outsource the financial care of minors into one of our pre-approved safe houses, and also provide training to DCS caseworkers. There's several other awareness campaigns that are benefiting the entire state. One of those is, and we're working towards this, is the second annual Unite and Wear White. There's a flyer in the packet in there. This year, 2011, is the first year that we hosted. Our coalition hosted this. We expanded it to include our Tennessee team, and we were able, it's the largest awareness campaign that we've done so far, and we were able to reach 38 states and 9 different countries in raising awareness. This coming January, on January 11th, which is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, will be our second annual event, and we're looking to expand that into all 50 states and additional countries. The 5-card pledge packets, which everyone received one of these, this is our #1 awareness campaign in Knoxville, and we have handed out thousands upon thousands of these packets. When we speak at different engagements, everyone wants to know, what can I do to get involved? They may not have a lot of time or money, but they want something tangible that they can do. And so we created these 5-card pledge packets, and what it is just an awareness card. It's got trafficking stats on one side about domestic trafficking, and then also in Tennessee itself. And what we do is we ask everyone just to hand out 5 cards to friends or family. When you have someone take 100 of these packets and blanket an area, instantly 500 people have just been aware of human trafficking. Blanketing communities is something that In Slavery Tennessee has mentioned. Our coalition is doing as well. We're engaging faith-based organizations and churches to help in this fight with human trafficking. There's also an immigrant outreach, and Free for Life International is leading awareness and training efforts in their En Acción program within the Hispanic community. We all know there's a lot of media coverage on immigrant trafficking, whether it be sex or labor trafficking, and we try to draw more additional emphasis on domestic trafficking. But Free for Life has taken the initiative to really develop a program within the Hispanic community. Training is another area that is so important for what we're doing in this effort. All NGOs across the state will provide some form of training either to law enforcement, students, professionals, community leaders on recognizing the signs of human trafficking and victim identification. Part of what we're doing is raising up leaders all across so that we can expand the message that we have. As of right now, Tennessee, we have 2 annual trainings that are offered. Here in Nashville, the Trafficking in America Task Force, they will be hosting their 2nd annual conference this coming May. The training that they had this year reached 18 different states, and they're shooting for all 50 states to have participants. In Knoxville, we will be hosting our 3rd annual collaboration to combat human trafficking. Our training is providing hands-on training with breakout workshops, and we just completed our 2nd annual training and had over half of our participants were law enforcement. And we had people ask, how in the world did you get so many law enforcement to come to the training? And it was really simple, and it's Deputy Chief Gus Paducas with KPD. Gus has taken such an initiative, and it shows the level of leadership of Chief Roush to encourage that development and growth within their division. And Gus, after the Hamlin County case, just outright said, I can tell you everything I know about human trafficking in about 5 minutes. But I'm telling you, for Knoxville and for East Tennessee, there has been no one that's had a greater impact in law enforcement in not only just the trafficking efforts, but also within other communities and counties than Deputy Chief Gus Paducas. And it's been such an honor and privilege for us to work with him in so many ways. Prosecution efforts we've already discussed with the different laws that are passed. We did include in our packet the current laws that are in effect. As of last year, under the Dirty Dozen report, we only had 4 of the 10 laws that were recommended from the Polaris Project. Now we have 6, and we are working towards adding a couple of more to those and adding the amendments to the increased penalties for those convictions. So when you look at everything that we've done as NGOs in working with law enforcement and with our government, it has taken statewide efforts and a collaboration to make a way for us to gain the momentum that we have. For the media, you can take our message and instantly get it to thousands of people all over the place. There are certain things that will help our message get out even better, and I won't go through those, but there is a page on the back of our packets that just some different important things that the media, when they're recovering, such as Derry mentioned, prostituted children versus calling them prostitutes. And so we encourage them to take a look at those. So no matter how little or how much money we have to help fight the #2 crime in the world, we all have a responsibility to do something and to be a light in the darkness. As William Wilberforce once said, "You may choose to look the other way, but you can never say you did not know." Thank you.